There's an old Greek parable that says the fox knows a lot of things, the hedgehog knows one big thing. And what it comes from is like foxes are cunning and they've got lots of ideas, and there's sort of all these ways that they try to over time get at the hedgehog. The hedgehog does one thing really well. It rolls into an armored ball with spikes on it. Nothing can get it. And it does it every time, and it always works. Happy New Year, Matt.
Happy New Year. We're back.
Anyone listening, this is our first podcast of the new year. So we are back in full effect.
Survived. You have fun, good times with the family?
Yes.
They were all here, huh?
Yeah, had everybody in town.
It's probably been a minute.
It has. I mean, Jake's been underwater for the last 3 Thanksgiving and Christmases both. So it's his first to be above the water even.
I'm sure he's happy.
Oh, he's stoked. He
moves
to Italy.
Cooking. Yeah, he's going to Italy.
He moved to Italy on Monday.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so he'll be over there, and we will be visiting frequently.
Yeah, Alloy, Italy.
Yeah, let's do it. Start out in Naples and go from there. It's close to the Amalfi Coast, so it'll be a good place to visit.
Hell yeah. You've never been, right?
No, never been to Italy.
Me neither.
Yeah, I've been to Europe a bunch, but never Italy. But seems like that's the place to go in Europe, so I'm very excited about going.
All right, cool. Start booking the trip.
I should. So, in the spirit of like the new year, our Did You Know? You ready for this? This will be a whole 12 months.
Just throw it at me.
So, well, this one's kind of a mind screw, I think. So, did you know that the Cleopatra, her reign was closer to the advent of the iPhone than it was to the building of the pyramids? That's how old the pyramids are. That's such a mind screw when you think about time in general. So, yeah, the time span between her rule and when the iPhone was created versus her rule and when the pyramids were built, she's closer to the iPhone than the pyramids. Isn't that nuts?
It is nuts.
Yeah. So what do you have?
Well, this is based on the internet, so
Right.
everything on the internet's true.
Of course.
So the 100 folds in a chef's hat.
I mean, I didn't know it was 100.
There's 100, yeah. So there's their first fact. But those are 100 ways to cook an egg.
Is that what that's for?
Yeah.
I love this. This is going to be a good year, Matt. I love this stuff. But it is interesting, right? It's
that was the first thing I read.
I'm the most, I think my only superpower is I'm very curious about literally everything.
But it was based on the internet.
Well, it could be true. If it's not, if you have other reasons to say it's not, let us know in the comments. Otherwise,
yeah. No more dad jokes.
100 ways. I didn't know there was 100 ways to cook an egg, but I guess there is.
I didn't know either.
Can you bring that next time? Talk about the 100 ways to
we'll
cook
go
an
over
egg.
them like how to, was it Bubba and talking about shrimp? Boil them.
Two hours later, you're still going. I'm over here asleep. Boil shrimp. So what I want to talk about today is something called the Hedgehog Concept. Do you know what a hedgehog is, first of all?
Yeah, it's a cute little thing that walks around and rolls into a ball with a bunch of spikes on it.
Yeah, it's like a mix of an armadillo and a porcupine, right?
Yeah.
So there's an old Greek parable that says the fox knows a lot of things, the hedgehog knows one big thing. And what it comes from is like foxes are cunning and they've got lots of ideas, and there's sort of all these ways that they try to over time get at the hedgehog. The hedgehog does one thing really well. It rolls into an armored ball with spikes on it. Nothing can get it. And it does it every time, and it always works, right? So that's the whole idea about the hedgehog when it pertains to business is essentially identifying the one thing that you can be really good at. And we've talked about this on other podcasts, like to stay singularly focused and how hard that is.
Sure.
I think in the current spirit of entrepreneurship, if you spend any time on social media, you'll read things like you need to, have 8 line items of revenue, and you need to do this and you need to do that. And we'll argue that that's a terrible idea. Like, get focused on the one thing that you can do really well, and everything that you do should be pointed in that direction. And anything that you do outside of that is a complete waste of your time.
Sure.
But companies really struggle to do that. And in the book, Good to Great, they have a whole chapter on the Hedgehog Concept, and they do some case studies. One of them was on drugstores, and it was Walgreens versus Eckerd drugs. And I think Walgreens' main focus was to have conveniently located drugstores and to drive a higher return per member, right? Or per visit per customer, right? And so everything they put into their business was to do that. At the time that they started that philosophy, they had a certain CEO that was like, what is our main thing? And then we're going to put everything behind this. At that same time, you had Eckerd Drugs, which was actually a better financially stable company at the time, or financial profile. they kind of went scattershot all over the board, right? I mean, they were like doing photo, they were buying into like photo businesses, buying this, buying that. And of course, in the next however many years in the Good to Great case study, I think they were like 15 times growth, revenue, and obviously profits tied to that, than Eckerd's with a scattershot approach. So I think what's lost on some folks is like, if you don't have that singular focus, you might be doing a bunch of half-baked, line items of revenue, and that might make you feel good. It might even be like, solving that entrepreneurial squirrel brain that you have, but it's actually working against your business overall.
And it's called the core value proposition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the way that this works, and we'll talk about how to set it up so that anyone listening can do their own. And then we'll maybe talk about what we think, right, from ours. So imagine like a Venn diagram where you've got 3 circles, and then where the circles intersect in the middle is where the magic happens, right? And the 3 circles are this, and I wrote them down because I knew I'd forget. So the first one is, what are you deeply passionate about? When you read that, I think we've done a lot of information and put out a lot of content about like passion doesn't necessarily solve a business, right? There's a problem in a market and you build that machine and it solves that problem. So what it really means, passionate, is like, what are you, not necessarily what are you good at, but what do you really want your business to do, right? And keep in mind, like, there are businesses that are in other case studies in that chapter in Good to Great that are like Gillette razors. Like, they're passionate about like the laser focused production of razor blades. So you can be passionate about what would seem to be like weird stuff, right? I think with fitness, one thing that you've always articulated to me really well is the passion shouldn't necessarily be for the thing, meaning like a tool, like a kettlebell or whatever. The passion should be in helping people.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Because then once you say, okay, my main passion is to raise the self-esteem of our local communities by getting them into better shape, like that's my passion. The vehicle is important, but it's not as important as that, right? So that's where our real passion comes from. Then from that, you go and you build the machine, right? And you take it to market and you fix it. But you do it because altruistically, like at times work is hard and you got to grind it out. You'll certainly be more apt to get up and hustle if you have a lot of passion around just helping people in general. Right. And I think that's where our passion comes from. I mean, we talked about why didn't we develop corporately instead of franchising? It's like, well, helping people become entrepreneurs, getting a return on their investment and realizing their dreams allows me to also help people. So it's the same, it's kind of one and the same for us, right? So ours is that, like, what are we really passionate about? We like to help people, period. Like, you said it before. You love coaching, right?
Yeah, and it keeps that lens on everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to change anything, it's that first thing. Is it going to be the best for the customer? Is it going to be a help the customer?
Right. And we have this, again, two markets. We have the franchise and the customer. And in a lot of ways, those are one and the same, because what's best for the customer is obviously best for the franchisee, because that's their business is with the customer. So we always look at things through the customer lens, because by default, that makes the franchise stronger. Yep. So first of all, what are you passionate about? That's one circle. The next circle is, what can you be the best in the world at? And one thing that's interesting they talked about in Good to Great that I found interesting anyway was that it didn't necessarily mean what you were good at. It's like you might be good at something, is how they stated it, but you can't be the best at it. And so you might say, like, in the past, Matt's really good at writing workouts for group training, like boot camps and stuff, because we had to do that for other brands. So we're good at that. But is that really, can we be the best in the world at that?
Yes. No.
Well, I could, but I don't want to. Maybe. But I think when you honestly look at your overall organization and kind of what you're putting in the market, like, what can we be the absolute best in the world at? And to me, it goes back to, again, we're looking at the intersection of 3 circles. So we're passionate about helping people. So can we be the best in the world at delivering a personal training service that helps people? And I think the answer is yes. And certainly to make it more affordable and all the things that means we can help more people. Because you could do one-on-one training and help people, but you couldn't help as many people. So if our real passion comes from helping people, then putting them into groups of 6 allows us to help then by default more people, right? So that's ours, is like, look, what are we the best in the world at? Delivering personal training that can help people. Got it. Then I think the trickiest one for most is, what drives your economic or resource engine? So what is it that you're going to measure in your business that's going to let you know whether or not you're being successful? Like, what's the one thing, again, in this Hedgehog simple concept, what's the one thing that you're going to measure? So I think what they did for Walgreens, it was additional spend per customer. That was it. And so they knew if they could put these in convenient spots, they would make it easy for customers to get into the parking lot, out, all the things, right? And they did this at a great expense to their business, by the way, as a side note. They would like close a store if it was inconvenient and open one like a mile down the street.
They were all like right next to each other.
Yeah, but they would cram them all in there. They had like 7 and 2 blocks, radius in New York or something.
It's like Dollar General.
Yeah.
Dollar General's everywhere.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, how successful is that company financially? Right. Great. And I bet their core value is like, we're going to sell people things that they need at a very inexpensive price. We're going to make it convenient by putting it in areas that are maybe underserved for others. And if those demographics work to put 10 around a small town, they'll do it. Right. And they've got their formulas for that. But then what drives that? Maybe for Dollar General, it's the same thing. I don't know. Everybody's got a Hedgehog like measurement, like the one thing. So we talked about this yesterday, Matt and I did, and what we came up with, which makes a lot of sense for us, is, and one of our differentiators goes back to also what we're best in the world, is lifetime value of a customer.
Yep.
Because when we look at the LTV of a customer, and we can talk about this all the way through franchising, it's like that means that someone is paying more and they're staying longer. And it's a combination of those two things. So it means, first of all, that we're selling a valuable service. So there's a value proposition that the customer recognizes, check. And then long term, are we delivering on that value promise? Because if you're doing a good job, the combination of what people pay and how long they pay you adds up to lifetime value of a customer. There's a lot of ways to measure that. You could do lifetime gross value. That's kind of what we're using. We have a decent profit margin. I mean, I could say it could be really good profit margin in our business. If you're running a different type of business that has a lower margin, maybe your lifetime value is based on that profit margin because you have to look at that instead. Yep. Ours is inherently high, so it's like we can look at gross revenues for each. But when you look at that, that would tell us if the customer stays a long time and they're willing to pay for personal training rates to get it, that tells us everything we need to know. And then everything that we build at the bottom, the thing we're passionate about, helping people, this is the measurement that shows that we're actually doing that. Because the more they are around us and the more they stay, they're valuing what we do, and we can't help them unless they're with us, right? Sure. Not on the bus, can't be helped kind of idea. So I think when we look at it from that standpoint, it's like all the things we build, retention tools, sales tools, all those things, they all basically filter down into this one number, which is LTV. And by the way, if the franchisee, so we have these two customers that we talked about, we've got the end user consumers and the franchisees. The franchisee, that is also affected by that same metric, because if their lifetime value of their customers and their local market's better, that means that they're making more money, so they're happy. Right. We are perfectly aligned with them, meaning we take a royalty percentage of their top line revenue. So if they're doing better, by default, we as a franchise are doing better. So that one number tells us everything we need to know about how our product is being received in the market, whether people are sticking around, which means are we delivering on the value proposition? And if so, the franchisee will be happy because they will be getting return on investment and helping their local community. And then we'll by default be happy because we'll be making a percentage of this very successful local business or businesses, right? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, it seems simple, but it's super hard to do, especially that entrepreneurial, brain. One thing I was listening to, I think it was Simon Sinek. He was talking about, I always mess this up, you can't see the forest through the trees. That's right?
It. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's talking about if you're not focusing on one thing and you're focusing on other things, the wrong thing, you're going to go off path. So he gives the example of like skiers. Like skiers, they have a path and they stare at your path. They don't stare at anything else. They're not staring at trees. And if you stare at a tree, guess what? You're going to hit a tree.
Yep.
Right. So this helps keep your laser focus and like, here's our path. Get rid of all the distractions and just focus on the thing that's going to make you better.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And that they use that, like I've ride motorcycles for life. When I take racing school, they will say that, it's like target fixation. So like if you stare at the place where you don't want to go, you're inevitably going to go there. Yeah. So don't look at the thing you don't want to run over in the road or whatever that is, because you're going to hit it. So that's a really good point. So yeah, guys, it's a simple concept, but the thing about the simplicity of it, it's really difficult. So I would say spend some time with your corporate team. We've just recently implemented the EOS system. So we're spending some off-campus time together as a team, really dialing in some of these concepts and making sure that like anything that we do as we scale our business, we can stay within the guardrails of kind of what we're trying to do and what's important. So again, draw 3 circles on your page. What are you deeply passionate about? Like ultimately, and it can't be like kettlebells, right? It's got to be like helping people or whatever that is. Like, what do you really like to do as a company? And then secondly, what can you be the best in the world at? Not what you're currently good at, but really look at it and say, could we be the best in the world at this, right? And you should be able to confidently, without any braggadocious sort of aura around it, just say, yeah, we could be the best at that. And then ultimately, what's the economic engine that you're going to measure that makes sure that you're doing those things? And the intersection of all 3 of those circles is where like the best companies in the world, and they don't just do it for a short period of time. These are the ones that do it over long, decades of time. So try that exercise out. We certainly work on it here. And for any franchisees that are listening, like this is what we're doing on your behalf, and you're going to benefit from this as well. So hope it helps.
Yeah, thanks. Check out the book. Good to Great. It's awesome.
Yep. This is the Hedgehog chapter. And we will catch up with you guys next week with even more random facts by Matt.
I'm going to learn so much this year.
All right, I'll see you guys. Peace.